Hello everybody, welcome to Show Studio. This is Couture Winter 19 Head to Head. And I'm very happy to welcome back the lovely Stephen Jones.
Hello Mimma, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
Fine, fine. Had a very busy summer after the Haute Couture shows, which were quite recent. You tend to imagine it's sort of the end of the season or something, but in fact everybody's preparing for September and shows in New York, so it's that cycle which never stops.
I know, because we try to have you immediately after Couture, thinking now he's on holiday, and you are never.
Never.
But that's the price of success, isn't it?
Well, maybe, yeah.
So, listen, I think we had a very interesting couture season in Paris. It just ended at the beginning of this July. There were a few new things. I mean, the most important and felt was the first couture after Karl.
Yep.
So the first couture without Karl, with Virginie Viard doing her first show solo, and Fendi ending it in Rome with a clear homage and an openly expressed homage to Karl. And then we had the first show by Daniel Roseberry for Schiaparelli, which was quite interesting, and so on and so forth. So before going into detail, I would like to summarize a little bit what I saw.
Okay.
So I saw beautiful clothes, so I think that everybody tried to display in force the skills of the atelier. So the intricacy, the complication, the skills of the craft of this show shows what couture actually is. Then we saw a lot of headpieces, from hat to jewelry in the head, that we might want to discuss with you.
Yeah, yeah.
We saw suit and trousers, many more trousers than usual in couture, and especially John Galliano for Margiela Artisanal talked about trousers made, cut, deconstructed and reconstructed, becoming tops and stuff like that. And what else did we see? Flat shoes, so like comfort, couture comfort.
No.
And I thought...
Lovely, flat shoes with a corset, great, it's the way to go.
I think it's very chic. And well, you need to have long legs though. Not every woman looks good with flat shoes and like wide trousers or long skirt.
No, but of course the thing in haute couture, when you go to a couturier's house, they will adjust the proportions for you. The point of couture is having something which suits you perfectly.
Oh yes, but you can't adjust the proportions of the body. And trust me, as a woman, I tell you, if your leg...
Even though Schiaparelli says, I'll train the body to fit the dress, I'm sorry, in the modern world...
Oh, but that's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's possible.
Well, it is, but I don't think it's necessarily a modern point of view.
No, I agree, but what I think is that you can be petite, very tall, medium, whatever, but if the proportions of your leg, it's on the lower side, which doesn't mean ugly, it's much harder to wear long with flat.
But this is one of the things of haute couture, I just said, that if you go to buy something of haute couture, the fashion show is just the starting block, really, for what you're going to end up having, because a couturier and the fitter will adjust the size and proportion, silhouette, fabric to suit you. So many couture customers absolutely will not want to have what has been seen on the runway or has been worn by a celebrity, because why would you want to spend
100,000
or more dollars on something which has been seen by everybody?
Yeah.
You want to have what you do is you pay for that privacy. That's one of the big lures of haute couture.
So it's made on you,
for you, to your requirements, but with the artistry of the designer.
Yeah, and anyway, so to go back to the collections, I saw someone was asking me this morning, what did you like? And I said, personally, for my style, one thing, and for the sake of fashion, let's start with this. I think what John does, it's always quite amazing. Is it easy for me to understand how to wear it, how anybody can wear it? But let's start maybe by Margiela Artisanal. That was another ode to decadence, as John said. And it was, again, this mixture between modern technology and classic cuts or classic fabrics.
Yeah, and it was so different to last season. Do you remember, with all the colours and everything? This was a completely different language. And trousers in the bottom half of the body. I mean, when you think of the body and you think of haute couture,
Yeah.
if you sort of half close your eyes, it's Christian Dior who did the big skirt. If you half close your eyes, it's Chanel who did the tailored jacket. So those places sort of in between, like a tailored trouser or something voluminous on the top, has never not really been dealt with.
No.
So it's so interesting for me that John dealt with this and used many of the, for me, looking at what he did, used many of the bouleversé techniques that he had started to use in his maybe third or fourth year at Dior, when he really started to re-examine the cutting and turning things upside down.
That's the bouleversé,
yeah.
like upside down.
Yeah.
But you know, there's one look at the very beginning where I think they're like trousers deconstructed and made look like a top. And so what I think is fascinating, or that one, no, just go down one, please. The one in the middle, the pinstripe.
Yeah.
And I think what's fascinating is how it makes it look possible and real and relevant and modern, and I think he's a genius. I mean, what he's done here is, aesthetically speaking, again, it's not my favorite of his shows, but I mean, if you look at the craftsmanship, the idea.
I mean, John really knows what he's doing, and he's got a whole group of people around him, like Alexei, like Raphael, who is his head cutter, who really, they've been working together for 15 years. So they really know how to work together, and John is a supreme tailor. I mean, he really does understand
supreme is the word.
How those things can work, and he really knows about drawing. He's a fantastic illustrator. He can really draw it, he can really describe it, and he has the experience now to make it work. Many other people would try to do something like this and it would end up looking amateur as opposed to assured.
But that's also the interesting thing, because a look like the one there in the middle is inimitable. Mm-hmm. So when you see a lot of people trying to copy the past or, you know, referencing others, it's very difficult to reference what John does here.
And in fact, if you look at the outfit on the right, which is sort of a ball gown, the great thing about this is it looks supremely confident and not forced, and not as though you're trying to make a point of view. It's not to say that it's relaxed, but somehow there's an ease of being, which is a hallmark of what John does. No matter whether for his own collection, for Dior, for Margiela now, yes, it can be histrionic, it can be eccentric, but there's a certain authority, and he always makes it look convincing.
And it's very interesting what you just said, because if we all remember what John did for Dior, and especially his couture shows, where he was one of the first that were like this incredible spectacle with him, you know, coming out as a surprise character every time. And here it's very simple, you know, the people were standing, there were double mirrors, so the floor and the ceiling, and then images of naked parts of bodies on the walls. And so it was this like proximity of the people to the clothes, but with this surrounding. It's quite interesting and yet quite simple.
Yeah, and this looks new in the way it looks new within a classical framework, I would say. And the other person who looks very new is Iris van Herpen, and she looks new within a completely avant-garde framework.
Yeah.
And they're the two people who are really sort of pushing it forward. If you want fashion to be pushed forward,
well,
not everybody does.
I could have a whole episode on this, because you're very right. I mean, and again, I say, when I think about what interests me as fashion, you know, discourse, it's probably John and Iris. You know, they modernize, they use technology. I mean, there is a lot of technology in what John did as well. Absolutely. There. And of course, Iris, you know, the shapes you recognize, it's Iris, but then she describes the fabrics and what she managed to do. It's incredible, you know, there's science and fashion. And that's, I think, real modernity, real innovation. But then if you think about clothes, and I would imagine I'm a woman who can afford couture, if I were a woman who could afford couture, then would I wear that, or would I wear a Valentino gown or a Givenchy gown? You know what I mean? So, or a Dior gown. And it's very, very interesting to understand this. I think it's very interesting to see what people think.
Yeah, I think if you were an haute couture client, yes, you would buy I would hope this season you would go and buy some Chanel for your day wear, because it was the most extraordinary, beautiful and sort of simplified, apparently simplified day wear. I know you can go to Dior for an evening dress, but I would say that if you wanted to buy sort of art and you wanted to make that investment,
Iris or John?
You go to John or Iris. I think it's a different customer, it's a different point of view, people will buy it for a different reason. But when you see these extraordinary clothes coming up now from Iris...
And how they're made and what they make.
Yes, yeah. And they're probably not the easiest...
They're collector's items.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you have 100,000 to spend or more...
But also, if I had an important...
If you're going to spend 100,000, what painting could you buy? What sculpture could you buy? Probably not that much. You know, if you're buying a well-known artist, you're probably talking about 1 or 2 million. These clothes are quite a bargain in comparison, but that's on the level that they have to be considered.
Yes, but if I were a big celebrity and I had a big red carpet to go, I think I would show up in Iris once, because maybe you don't go to the ball of whatever, you know, your best friends, but if you want to make a statement in fashion, you wear Margiela or Iris van Herpen, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
But let's go back to look
at
that in the middle. I mean, isn't that extraordinary? And also you can eat as much as you want because never will be seen. Let's go back to...
I'm sure it's
you
all
mentioned,
supported by a little corset inside, so maybe you couldn't.
You think so? Yeah,
it
needs to be, right?
It has to be, yeah.
Let's go back to Chanel. That was the talk in town. I mean, many journalists have said they were used to Karl doing the fittings whilst he was doing the preview to his top press, and that didn't happen, and people were expecting, they were wondering what Virginie would do in the Grand Palais, and she did this big library to, you know, to make the link between Coco, Karl, and herself, because they were all book lovers. So it was quite restrained, yet still complicated. And then I felt, and I was criticized for that, but I felt this was a modern Chanel. So it didn't change the world, it didn't change Chanel, which, who would change Chanel with the money they're making with this? But it was lighter, more modern. It was very pretty.
Yeah, I loved it because in a way, you could see the clothes. For me, and I will be roasted for saying this, sometimes my problem with Chanel is you couldn't see the clothes for the details in the clothes. But this time, you could actually see the clothes and the silhouette and the simplicity of outfit and everything that Chanel introduced. You know, when she first started off, she was essentially taking menswear ideas and putting it into womenswear, because at that time, in the 20s, womenswear was overly complicated. But certainly for the opening outfits, what I loved was the apparent sort of simplicity and elegance and cleanliness. And
as you said, they wear couture, which
is
very rare to see.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a lot of money to spend, where would you go to buy classic day wear? You go to Chanel. I don't think you'd necessarily pick another house.
I probably wouldn't, because I'm not a Chanel person, but I see what you mean, yeah. Maybe that kind of lady would. And they do, because Chanel has huge turnover. But I think, I don't know, even the slight difference in the shapes, the slight difference in the length of the skirts, be them mini, midi, or maxi. I mean, it's the same material. There's not a big difference in colors. But also the makeup, everything is clean and restrained, apart from that white, long eyeliner.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I would never think I'd say this, but hey, no hats, and it looks great because it needs that simplicity. I love Sam McKnight's hairstyles here, which are very simple, parted on the side, parted in the centre, which puts the focus on the clothes and the beautiful cut and the beautiful fabric.
Yeah.
So well, I think she got definitely a 9.5 out of 10.
Do you think she's there to stay? I think they still will want a big name, right? That's what houses do. They use someone in between, and then
well, maybe she will become
the Phoebe of the world. They will say thank you and goodbye.
Maybe she will become that big name that they want. Maybe she is delivering clothes for a whole new generation of Chanel customers.
Yeah, I mean, she, as we know, she's been there with Karl forever.
Problem is, with a big name, you bring everything that the big name has done, you bring to that particular house. I don't know if Chanel wants to assimilate another house.
Yeah, it's a little bit what Sarah Burton did for McQueen. I mean, it's a continuation, an evolution, not a revolution. And I was wondering, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about Phoebe. Everybody has talked about Phoebe Philo. And of course, I would probably want to wear Phoebe Philo Chanel, but do they need it? Why fix it if it's not broken? I mean, Chanel is doing so well. They can't really change it. I mean, they can't, because this is what a Chanel woman wants, isn't it?
Now, probably having an established name is more bankable. It's more sure. But if you're looking to the future in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, will fashion be like that? Will the world be like that? I'm not so sure. I think we probably need like a new a new person. Maybe it's not Virginie, I don't know. But I think it's maybe a new person that is maybe a wonderful and wild talent that we haven't particularly heard of yet.
That's possible, but you know, when I mentioned Phoebe, I think about what she did at Celine. Nobody knew what was the heritage of Celine. She did a Phoebe Philo thing. She revolutionized the way that, you know, women can be modern and whatever. If someone does that to Chanel, they ruin Chanel, I think, right?
No, I think Chanel is always about modernity. Completely.
Not change, total change, because if you look at Chanel now and Chanel by Coco, there is a difference, of course, but not that big. I mean, it's...
But with Karl, it had got much more fancy, much more complicated, because in a way, the drug of fashion that Karl needed to have needed to become stronger and stronger the older he became. And also as the fashion landscape became fuller and fuller, now what she's doing is really pulling back.
Yeah, and very well so.
Yeah.
I also was very surprised by how much I like this.
I mean, I was looking at this orange jacket at the moment. What's breathtaking is it's breathtaking in its simplicity.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it's got tucks and whatever, but
it's the right orange.
If H&M or Zara wanted, sorry, I shouldn't say those names. If those companies wanted to copy a look of this season, that's so easy to do, and because it would translate so easily into mass market, that's what will make it mass fashion.
Yeah, yeah. It was really good, and I agree with you. I mean, that hairstyle is so simple and it's beautiful. These girls are very young and very beautiful, and they look credible in Chanel Couture, so it's great. Yeah. Let's move to the one who's taking over the crown of the king of the couture week, which is Pierpaolo Piccioli for Valentino. Another standing ovation, another very emotional show. I loved it, not as much as the last one that I absolutely adored. It was very good. It talked about inclusion in individuality. So he put on the catwalk styles that didn't match to each other, because he said every woman needs her style, you know, that women, different age, ethnicity, style, taste, whatever. And so that's what he did. As usual, there were standout pieces, amazing. As usual, it was very beautiful, colorful, almost eccentric at times, very folk. But as usual, you know, he brought all his team on the catwalk. They were all hugging and kissing Mr. Valentino himself. He created emotion around it. And I think that's as important as the collection, more than the philosophical concept behind. But when you create emotion and the press talks about it and people are crying and everybody's Instagramming, then you're attracted to a brand. And when you go to the brand and that's the beauty of the clothes, bingo, right?
Yeah. And for me, when I see it, first of all, what I see is an extraordinary and beautiful color. He has, of course, different silhouettes, of course, different techniques, of course, the motion, but I think one of the unique things about him, he uses colors. It seems so weird to say that,
it's a master of
because
color.
when you think of the color spectrum, it's actually this little thing. It's this small sentence, but he turns it into like a Bible. You know, it's this tiny thing which he makes huge, and it's the authority and the confidence with which he does it is fantastic. I mean, the one other person who used colours like that was Yves Saint Laurent. and in
Mystery
that respect,
Saint Laurent, yeah.
in that respect, that he's absolutely inherited that crown of Saint Laurent.
Yeah, I think yeah,
And
he's the
maybe
master
also,
of color.
maybe master of color, and also using that multi-ethnic, multi-racial, inclusive thing was something that Yves Saint Laurent also did in the
it was the
70s. It's
first.
so weird that we dropped out from that.
Yeah.
But the girls look completely beautiful.
But one of the shows that most of all needs to be seen in movement, and I don't know if we have a little clip here with like the finale or something, is this one also, because he has this ability of using this fabric that are floating, and there's this wave of colors.
Shirt.
Oh, I mean, it's so beautiful. And that's when I say, you know, aesthetically, for my aesthetics, I would probably find something there much easier. I mean, is it changing the face of couture? No. He doesn't want it to be called modern couture, he wants it to be called relevant couture. And I understand what he says, you know, it's like, these are things that I want to wear. Look at that coat. I mean, it's so beautiful.
And I would say, don't analyze it. Just look at it.
Just look at it, exactly.
Just look at it. Just don't try and take a photograph of it. Don't try and remember it.
Yeah.
Just live that moment.
Yeah.
Because living that moment is what gives the emotion.
Yeah. I
Seeing the
love
rustle.
that. Don't analyze it, just look at it. Like when you go to a beautiful art show, there are some art shows that don't need analysis. They just need to be looked at.
Yeah, totally. I mean, these are great, and who could not have a wonderful time in these clothes and feel as though they were the party, even if they were not. But it
and
would
also
just
you
make
stand
you
out.
feel, yeah.
You stand out.
But I think when you, of course, it's important, especially clothes like this, how you appear, but how does it make you feel? When you look at yourself in the mirror, you'd think, wow, I'm completely transformed into something else. I can go out and be this wonderful person and have a great time.
And yet, they were not costumey, and that's also a very, very difficult thing to do, you know, to make clothes like that and not make them look like a costume, which I think was a little bit the problem of Fendi. Incredible setting, best Instagram photos, amazing, you know, Rome at sunset. It's beautiful, and you know, 54 looks for 54 years of Karl at Fendi. Those bowls, you know, 70 look had, and it was a little bit costumey. What do you think? Which is what Valentino was not at all.
I mean, I think all fashion is a costume. That white shirt is a costume.
Is it?
Of course, because it makes you feel neat and elegant and prepared to do an interview.
Yeah.
So it's a costume. It's just as much of a costume as a red wool.
My signature.
Just as much of a costume as a red wool wig. There's absolutely no difference. Of course, one is more extravagant than the other. In this one, you can walk down the street. If you were wearing a red wig, you'd probably have everybody stopping you, wondering why you were dressed like that. But it's still about, you know, we're all born naked, the rest is drag.
Yeah, can we see some Fendi, please? But I want to show you what I mean. I hear you, but as usual, you're too clever.
Even
I'm too clever for this superficial discussion. But what I'm trying to say is that by the way, that white suit, look number one, I wish I could, afford it. But between the hair and the Colosseum in the back and the attitude and this, there are a few fur, there are patchworked, like 70s with shorts underneath. That was a little bit too far, I think, in the costume kind of world. And I don't think any of the Valentino, including those important headpieces and whatever he did around, looked like, by costume I mean in a film or in a theater play instead of in the street or on a red carpet. Do you see what I mean?
Yes and no.
Okay. Well, that's a head-to-head. It's made to...
Head-to-head.
That's why... Go ahead. Contradict me. I love it.
I mean, is this costume? No, I don't think it's costume at all. It's just... Interesting thing is, because this is sort of slightly based in day wear, it looks, in a way, more extravagant and more costumey. Conversely, if this was based on evening wear, like Valentino, it would look more sort of believable.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, however, when I look at the dress on the right, which has got the quite complicated black straps on it. I mean, it's really ingenious to do that, but it's like, for my personal taste, a little bit complicated.
Too much.
But if we think of Karl loved costume. He loved that dressing up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it was completely him. What else are they going to do? Next season, maybe they could do something different.
I think they have a big problem with the fur narrative. You know, they're the fur house, and now they're mixing real fur with synthetic fur. They're making real fur lighter, but, you know, like, either do it or not. I mean,
we're not going to get into the fur question
fur modern
now.
Yeah, well, we can go into the feather question. There were one of the statement of the season were feather. There were feathers everywhere.
And
so
I can't tell you how
fur
many
is
interviews...
but what about feathers?
Well, they're animal products.
Yeah, absolutely.
Animal products, and depending on what fur it is, normally they're all byproducts of food production. But does that make it okay? Well, if you're a vegan, no.
So what do you mean? They kill birds for
No, they don't kill birds for their feathers.
For game in the restaurants, and they take the feathers?
I mean, the feathers that we can use in the United Kingdom are what we call barnyard fowl. So it's chickens, ducks, pheasants, grouse. You can't actually, in fact now, for about the past 6 months, you can't actually use peacock feathers. You can't import and export peacock feathers anymore.
I hope.
Ostrich feathers are farmed, so that's the one exception to the rule. But in fact, all the laws that were introduced in which had been introduced in the last century about fur protection were introduced because of feathers anyway in about 1890 from the Audubon Society in America. So the feather question has been a big question for a long, long time. It's all a question of generation, of point of view, because some people would say, well, we can't use fake fur because it's hydrocarbons, therefore that's not sustainable. So it is better to use real fur.
Fake fur is very polluting.
It just depends, and you can say, well, cotton uses a huge amount of water. In India, in America, we could actually irrigate so many other crops and not produce cotton. So, and in Egypt, there's similar stories. So, you know, all consumption is difficult when you consider it with fashion. And there's something completely different, but I think it's very interesting that LVMH has bought Stella McCartney because she is one of the world's real authorities, and maybe it was a political...
Minority stake.
Yeah, minority stake. But maybe it was a political mood. Great that they're actually doing that.
There's an strategy from both sides there, but again, that's another episode. Because we don't have much time and there's still so much to talk. We cannot leave this without talking about Dior because we know your relationship with it. But I just want to mention first Daniel Roseberry for Schiaparelli. So the story goes that when they were auditioning for the role, one of the things that caught Mr. Della Valle eye to choose his new designer was the one who didn't send it stuff with a redesign of a lobster, you know, the Schiaparelli eccentricity and whatever. And that was Daniel Roseberry, and then he said he spent a whole month, day by day, designing for the book to present the ideas, and he wanted to do a Schiaparelli that was, you know, a little bit eccentric, yes, so still in tune with the house, but his own, you know, and he comes from Tom Brown, so he knows about surrealism and all of that. Anyway, I thought it was a very, very, very strong start. I mean, there were things that were a bit weird, but I thought it was a very great start with like the day, the night, and the crazy. I was a tiny bit more or less sure about him sitting in the middle and drawing every look that came out. Yeah. What did you think?
I loved him. He, for people who don't know, he was actually in the centre of the catwalk, illustrating the clothes as they came out. I thought that was great, and of course from Tom Brown has always had this element of performance within his shows. It's never just a straight runway show. There's always something going on. And I think that was quite a good idea. You know, many dress designers do not sketch, do not draw. I would say most of them don't, but he's a very, very good illustrator. And it gave a slight difference, but however, fashion show, what's important is the clothes.
What did you think about the collection?
I think it was a very, very good start. I think it probably needs a little bit more focus as opposed to
Edit?
this particular, focus or an edit or something like that. But I think it was quite interesting because if you had to say the new world is Iris van Herpen and the old world is Valentino in a funny way, because this is an interesting sort of combination of the two.
Yes,
of course,
very well said.
Yeah.
As usual. That's Stephen Jones.
But yeah, I was very happy for him. I know him. He's a good friend.
Did you work with him?
Yes, I did.
So tell us about those beautiful headpieces that we've seen.
So we did all sorts of different things. We did some things which were almost like veils. There were things which were like balaclavas. There were lots of different things.
Is spectacular.
But what they were made to be was something which was very good in combination with the clothes. It's not that we were trying to make extravagant hats, because if we had done that, we would have fallen into the Schiaparelli shoe hat or the lamb chop or whatever. So we just wanted to have things which blended perfectly. That if a client was wearing a black tailored jacket like that, what sort of hat would she want to wear with it? Probably not a lobster, but she might want to have an embroidered little balaclava, which is actually just a strap at the front and a strap around the neck.
Is it what we're
the back of her head
here?
is complete, yeah.
I could see Caroline Bessette Kennedy there.
Yeah, we would hope so.
If she were alive, she would look beautiful in there. And what about the jewellery?
So the jewellery, they had different jewellers. They had Gaussons, who used to make jewellery for Schiaparelli back in the day.
Really?
To make some of the jewellery for that. But yeah, I think this was a great, and this was that huge necklace, which was like a serpent going around, which in fact was all transparent, was made by a company called Matar, who are a company of jewellers, who also made the jewellery for Christian Lacroix. And I think it's very interesting because every designer who I speak to at the moment is talking about Christian Lacroix.
Really?
I think the colour,
like
the exuberance, the fun, not the silhouette. I don't think people are doing puffballs anymore. No. But there was a certain sort of authority and an optimism which I think people are trying to capture now.
Okay, that's very interesting. Anyhow, so well done, Mr. Roseberry. I think you did a good job, and I really hope he will last a little bit longer than the others.
I'm looking forward to the pret-a-porter, because I think they're showing pret-a-porter in September. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, I think they will be, yeah.
Well, maybe having him now, it's worth trying that. Okay, let's go to Dior now, because we all know that you work a lot with the Dior house and Maria Grazia. 2 words before going into detail. One, it is very trendy now to trash your work by the press, so I think to say that Maria Grazia did a good job can be cool as well, because I think she does a good job. It's nothing that changes, again, the narrative of fashion or couture or whatever, but they are very good clothes and they sell. My problem with Maria Grazia is that sometimes she tries too hard with the concept and the philosophy around it, that doesn't really translate into the collection, which speaks for itself. I don't know if I'm making sense here. So,
I understand
and I think
completely.
that what gets a little bit on people's nerves. She should stop doing that and show clothes that if you look at them, if you go to the store, well, you won't see couture at the store, but in general, or if you go to the show at the V&A, they're very good clothes, and that's what Dior should do, right?
An expert fashion designer from her time at Fendi, through her time at Valentino, to her time at Dior. She really knows what she's doing. She really knows how to construct an evening dress or a day-wear outfit, or, she came from a world of handbags, so she can do that handbag, she can do those shoes.
Why doesn't she?
Because I think at this point in her career, she knows of the power she has of being somewhere like Dior, and the fact that these clothes are selling incredibly well in the way that they never have done before. Both pret-a-porter and haute couture.
That shows that fashion is made to sell clothes at the end of the day.
But she's using her power and her position as a vehicle to send certain messages. And that's, I think, what she's really interested in doing. Of course, that probably annoys the fashion world a bit, because it's taking it, is it a long frill, is it a short frill, and opening it up to the world of women and of humanity, as opposed to just fashion.
Well, yes and no. Let me head to head here as well, because I do not feel it authentic. I mean, the feminines, Rudowski, you know, are clothes modern. I feel, it sounds a little bit like a gimmick to me, and then it's just a slogan on a gown or a t-shirt. And then the fashion doesn't talk like that, does it?
I really
disagree.
I think she does not think it's a gimmick. I think she does really believe it.
Well, you know her, I don't. So.
I really do. It's unfortunate that you perceive it like that. And obviously, other people might do it like that. And in that case, how it's presented may need to be corrected. But...
so maybe the strategy is good, the execution is not?
I don't know. Maybe there's something about... or it needs to be done in a different way. But certainly... You know, this show was Our Clothes Modern. There was a whole series of philosophy behind that as well. One of the big things, it was all dark. It
was black, apart from look number one, and a few in the middle.
And a few other ones.
Some pink.
There was an element of mourning within this. This is an element of mourning which
Tell me about that.
Well, an element of mourning because, you know, in fact, all of Dior, the house of Dior, is being completely rebuilt at the moment. It's very non-accessible, so it's going to be built in a new way and reopen in about 3 years' time. But of course, all those areas which were the extraordinary photographs of the interior of fashion shows that we all know, we all grew up with from history of fashion, are going to have to be taken down and rebuilt, but they're not going to be in the same way. So this is a little bit, you know,
it's like the end of a, you know, the death of an era, the end of an era. So what about that Penny Slinger Dior dollhouse at the you know, the last look?
Well, that was how the house was. That was how.
Do we like it?
I loved it.
That was a symbol, right?
Yeah, it was a symbol of the house. But it is strange in a way because, for example, here the jewellery, we can see this, was absolutely exquisite. By this guy Lorenzo who does the jewellery for her. And, you know, the details were fabulous. Like, for example, these tights were, I mean, I've really never seen tights, and there were some feathered tights as well for some daytime looks, which I adored.
Those ties are a continuation of the sandals, like the Greek sandals, right? It's like all in one, I mean, if you look into the details, there's some very interesting thing. As usual, the hats are very beautiful.
I'm sure if you came and you put on one of those dresses, you would be amazed. You know, for the first time, Maria Grazia did some full-skirted looks. She's never really done those before, because normally her thing is to take the petticoat out. I mean, it's the classic Dior look. But in fact, in the full-skirted evening dresses, they had a crinoline which was completely soft and flexible, made using a new technique.
This one, for instance?
Yeah. For example, all of these, they were completely squashy and could be packed. And then when you take them out, they just sort of magically regain their volume.
So how does that happen, technically?
Well, you have to spend £250,000 on an evening dress to have one made for you so you can find out. But it's a system of using crinoline, which is nowadays like a woven nylon, in bands, and using special figure-of-8 techniques, which were invented in the workroom.
Wow.
For this season.
Yeah, that's one of the good examples of what I said, you know, this season was like a show-off of techniques and petite main skills, and I guess that's what I expect from couture. Of course, then when Iris or John, they do it the way they do it, they're magic, you know. But actually, when these women go and do their fitting...
Because also, in a way, they're independent houses. Iris is an independent house. Margiela's an independent house. The houses like Chanel, Dior, Valentino, they're heading up huge organisations.
Well, Margiela is part of an organisation.
Not in the way that Dior and Valentino...
It's not LVMH or...
Very different. Yeah.
But it's not as independent... Yeah, we have to...
Do we have a moment to talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not as independent as Iris. Iris is the real independent one. And as she says, I sell shoes and bags to pay for my couture. Anyway, let's go to Givenchy, where the theme was this anarchic, revolutionary woman who goes to this very noble chateau and rips out the bed sheets and the curtains and the rags to create her fashion. Did I see that? No. But I saw some very interesting ideas and some very beautiful clothes.
When you hear that story about a woman going, Is that more viable than Maria Grazia talking about feminism?
No, that's what I just said.
I mean, I think...
I don't care about that.
You know, I also think the clothes are the important thing. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. I love this. It appeals to me, again, you know, aesthetically, but who cares about that? But I also thought it was a very good take, very modern take on couture, a very good use of black and white, on, you know, simple yet articulate. There's some déjà vu that I don't know where they come from. I couldn't pinpoint exactly, but...
I'm sure Diet Prada will do that for me.
They probably have already, but anyway, I think there were some amazing idea, that pink coat that is between a cape and a coat, those long sleeves that I think are very chic in some things that we saw before. The short hair, of course, I sort of like, you know, the look of it.
I actually think the hair, this was by Guido.
Guido, yes.
The hair on the left, we just saw it before, which is extraordinary. It's like, for those of you old enough, it's very much Flock of Seagulls hair.
It looks like a hat, but actually it's hair,
but in
right?
fact, there were some hats as well for the first time ever. Noel Stewart actually collaborated with Givenchy.
Okay.
And created hats on that idea too. But there's something which is very assured about this collection, the most assured collection she has done.
It's funny how I think she does couture better than ready-to-wear. I mean, I think she did couture for the first time with Givenchy, and yet I think that's where she really shines. Maybe because, you know, when you do couture, you're more free. You just, you know, you just throw ideas there and hope that someone will come and buy. But I think she does couture really well. I mean, lots of feathers here.
Lots of feathers. I don't know if she's going to get flack from using feathers, but...
Well, I didn't read much about that. But,
I'm sure because they're made in France and Givenchy is part of the LVMH group, you know, there we are very, very concerned about what we're doing, or who our suppliers are, whether something that we're using is right. I mean, for example, this effect here, these are actually done with cockerel tail feathers. That's what that feather is. The previous one, the white one, was all ostrich feathers, so they're actually very simple things. Yeah, they're farmed. Yeah.
But so it means those animals were put into this world to be killed for couture?
No, they
were killed. Just to say it bluntly.
No, they were killed to be
eaten.
Well, they were killed to carry on and carry on the line. If you think of the genetics, but we humans eat them, and as a byproduct.
Well,
of
if it's a byproduct, I mean, we still do eat them, and so unless you're vegan, which I'm not, I don't think you are, right? And that's it.
As a hat maker, I'm a carnivore, and I use animal products within the hat.
Do you use feathers now? Is feather the new trend? Is feather the new fur?
Not particularly. I'll use feathers where I deem that aesthetically they're necessary, but I wouldn't just use them because they're feathers.
A trend, yeah.
But I have to say, women do love wearing feathers because they express a sort of femininity and a sort of glamour.
And the movement.
And a movement
I think it's
that only a feather can bring.
Brooches from the 30s.
I mean, you can say that, for example, with fur brings a glamour or a allure that no other material can bring, and it's sort of association in people's mind. I mean, of course, in some people's mind, they say, well, an association of being a murderer. But, for example, with these feathers, especially when you have a big volume, what you can do is if you give a light dusting of feathers over the top of it, it gives an impression of lightness and ease and of movement.
Yeah. Okay. We are so way out of time, but it's so good. I could go on for hours and hours. Well, thank you, Stephen. You've been amazing as usual. And hopefully see you soon for the next season.
Absolutely, Mimma.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.